Well, hello everybody in Sioux Land. It is time for another edition of the Playbook Pundits podcast, aka Dudes Talking Pigskin.
Yes.
So, what is it now? Week 7 or is this week 8?
I think it's week 8.
Oh my goodness, another week is
It's
passed.
mid-October.
It is mid-October, Halloween is just around the corner, and the playoffs are even closer. The regular season ends tonight for a lot of the area teams right now. I mean, how crazy is that?
Well, it's absolutely crazy, Shane, and it's one of those situations, and you've got it broken down pretty nicely. It's we've got a lot of teams that are going to be in the playoffs next week, and 2A, 1A, A, and 8 player, and tonight's the last chance for them to prove what they can do going into the playoffs next week.
I have it all written down. It takes 3 pages of my messy handwriting. But if you want me to, I can go through all of the playoff scenarios that we have right now.
My friend, the floor is yours.
So, I guess first, we'll go with the teams that are not ending their regular season this week. We'll start at the top and go to the lower classes. 5A right now. 5A goes just by RPI, and we'll talk about RPI in a second. Essentially, top 16 teams in Class 5A make it in due to RPI. And right now, we have a couple of teams that could make it. I mean, we have East. Do you know what number they are right now?
I believe they're either 18th or 19th. Both Sioux City East and Des Moines Roosevelt, both playing each other tonight at Drake Stadium in Des Moines, are right on the bubble right there, and they're both side by side by each other in RPI. The winner, I don't know if they get into the number 16 spot tonight.
They get close. They need a couple things to happen before they do.
Yes, they also need a couple things to happen as well, but that's the game of the week in the area tonight. Like I said off air, I wish that game wasn't at Drake Stadium, but it is what it is. But that it's a huge game for East. It's a must win for East.
Absolutely,
essentially.
For teams like that are on the bubble, this is just the time of year where you have to finally show who you are. I mean, this is kind of where the boys get separated from the men in a certain sense. I mean, the good teams, you win a couple, and for East, you got to, like we mentioned, have a couple other teams lose. A couple things have to come together, but they still could make it in. And then the other team that we have right now, North, who I'm covering tonight, North versus West out at Elwood Olson Stadium, they are currently number 23 in RPI. They have a .4656 RPI, so they're a little bit further out. They would need a few more things to happen, but it's still a possibility. And West is currently number 31 in RPI, so their season is not going to go to the playoffs this year, but they still had, as we mentioned, a pretty
it's a successful season. 2 wins.
Successful season.
There you go.
And then moving on to Class 4A and 3A, for these districts, it's the district champions and the runners-up that make the playoffs automatically, and then RPI is used for at-large bids, so if you have a couple other factors can come into play, but if you don't come in first or second, you still possibly could make it. So right now, in 4A, Spencer is tied for third in Class 4A District 1, but they are number 14 in RPI at 5656. And then the team at the top of their district is Lamar's, currently number 20, and I wrote a little story here about Lamar's, hoping to keep its grip on first place tonight when they're playing, is it Spencer?
Yeah,
they're playing Spencer, so that kind of sums that up nicely.
That's up in Spencer too, I believe.
It's going to be one heck of a matchup there. So those two teams are currently in the running right now. Lamar's tied for first with Webster City in 4A District 1. So they need to win a couple. They're as we mentioned, they keep a grip on that first place or second place. They make it in. If they go to third, they still could due to RPI. And then we have Class 3A. Boyden Hull they're pretty much in right now. They've number 1 in RPI. They're 3-0 in conference. And then number 8 in RPI is Sergeant Bluff Luton. They're currently 2-1 in their district play. And then we have Carroll, they're number 16, barely just behind Fairfield, so could possibly make it in there. 2A, District 1. In 2A, it's the top 4 in each district that make it. So that's 4 out of 6 in each district. I mean, it doesn't seem, you still have to play well to make it, but more likely than not, you're going to make the playoffs in 2A. And currently, we have Central Lyon, West Lyon, Sheldon, and Unity Christian in Class 2A District 1, all currently in playoff position with Okoboji and Cherokee Washington on the outside. In District 2, Siouxland, we have OABCIG, Esterville, Lincoln Central, Spirit Lake are all currently in playoff position right now. And so I can stop talking for a minute. What are some of the key matchups that you think?
There are some big games tonight in the area. And like I said in the intro, I think that a lot of these teams are going to have to prove themselves tonight. Sioux Center and Carroll is a big game. Sioux Center having to go to Carroll to play that game. Carroll 5-2 on the season. But Sioux Central has proven that they can play with some teams. They played with Sergeant Bluff earlier in the year. They have Zach Rosenblum at quarterback. He's done some good things this year defensively. The Warriors have had a couple guys who have made some big important plays. Sheldon going to Unity Christian tonight.
Big one right there.
Yeah, that's a big one right there. That one's at Corver Field tonight in Orange City. Sheldon needing a win to stay in the playoff hunt. Unity just needs to prove themselves tonight, and a win tonight would give them a little bit of momentum going into the playoffs. And then the last one you put in the Siouxland capsules, Hartley Melvin. So Sanborn leading their district, traveling to Akron Westfield tonight. And Akron Westfield I don't necessarily want to play spoiler, but they can help out South O'Brien, which are tied with HMS.
Both 5-0 in conference play right now.
So if South O'Brien needs a little bit of help, but they need Akron Westfield to help them, and maybe the Westerners can pull out the home upset tonight against HMS.
Yeah, that would be a thrilling victory for them. I mean, you mentioned Hartley, Melvin, and Sanborn too. I'll get to them in just a second when let's do Class 1A. I'll continue with these.
Okay.
So District 1, Class 1A, we have currently for Siouxland teams, we have West Sioux, Western Christian, Emmitsburg, Ridgeview are all currently in playoff position, those top four. And then Sioux Central and Sibley currently on the outside right now. And then Class A, finally getting to Hartley, Melvin, Sanborn. As you mentioned, they are tied with South O'Brien for first. And then fighting for those final two playoff spots in that district is going to be Akron. And then we have Galen Catholic and Alta Aurelia, all currently tied for third at 3-2. So there's three teams battling for two playoff spots. So obviously,
that's what you want in the final week.
Yeah, that's absolutely what you want. I mean, that's for whoever loses out on that. That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah, with those three teams battling for two playoff spots, it's just kind of a fun position for us to be in.
It's playoff scoreboard watching.
It is. That makes it a lot of fun at this point.
I don't know if schools have scoreboards, but I'm sure they'll have someone scrolling through Twitter or Facebook saying, okay, here's what's happening,
Hopefully the announcers will know to announce that over the PA system.
Yep.
Finally, we have 8-player, and it's top 3 teams in each district for 8-player. And right now in District 1, Remsen St. Mary's is leading that district. Newell Fonda is currently in second, so both those teams are currently in position to make it to the postseason. And then, kind of like with the last one, we have Kingsley Pearson and Arwi Va battling for third and final spot in the postseason. So another 2 teams battling for one spot.
Yep, that's what you want. Postseason scoreboard watching on the final week of the regular season from 2A down to 8-player, and this is going to be a fantastic week. Next week opens up the playoffs. I don't know how the format's going to be for right now. I've heard neighboring districts playing each other, maybe a little bit of mileage playing into that. That comes out in the morning.
9 a.m. tomorrow.
Yep, and we'll have a story up online in the morning about that, as well as we'll probably talk about it in Monday's video cast as well.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, this is like we mentioned, this is the time where everything kind of comes down. All the teams are getting whittled down. We won't have as many teams to talk about next week.
True.
But it'll just be a lot of fun. I'm very much looking forward to the postseason. This is one of my favorite times of year as a sports writer.
Mine too. With winter season starting to come up around the corner, we have Briarcliff Basketball Media Day today, so that's right around the corner. And so I agree with you. I think this is one of my favorite times of the year when postseason starts. Volleyball playoffs start next week on the Iowa side.
Wild.
Cross-country playoffs start next week with state qualifying. The conference meets were this week as well. So a lot going on in all the main sports. Nebraska tennis was this week. You've got a big match tomorrow that you're covering with Dakota Valley.
Yep, Dakota
Girls
Valley.
Soccer. And let's go there. Let's go there. Dakota Valley facing West Central tomorrow for the Class A Girls State Championship match. I think the Panthers have a lot of confidence. I know they've lost to West Central twice already in the regular season, both by 1-0 results, I think.
Yeah.
But I think the Panthers, it's hard to beat the same team 3 times.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. I mean, they talk about that in the NFL. You hear it a lot. Is when you play a team in your division, if you lose to them twice, it's really hard to beat them. If you play them again in the playoffs, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a good percentage of the time that losing team the first 2 times finally gets it. Third time's the charm. Honestly, I do think Dakota Valley can pull this one out. I mean, Coach Castillo, he mentioned Ivy Winkler, as we've said before,
Yes.
being top goalie in Class A. They have Grace Bass, who was their top scorer, and they had a thrilling victory last week in the semifinals
In a
shootout where Winkler got the winning save and scored the winning goal. And just talking to Coach Castillo, he mentioned that the girls they seem like they were getting a little bit more nervous, but he would just try to take their mind off of it during practice, have them play some games and relax a little bit. And at this point, you just have to cut out all the distractions, all the reporters, all the nerves, all the reporters calling for interviews. I know where I am on that. But yeah, they just have to go in tomorrow, and he called it the game of their life. But all the pressure right now is kind of off of them. I mean, West Central has won 4 of the last 5 or 6 state titles. And if they win, obviously it'll be their 5th since 2016. So the pressure is kind of on West Central tomorrow. And yeah, Coach Castillo mentioned that. He said, we've got nothing to lose.
No.
And
this program's only, 5 years old, I think?
5 years old. They became a sanctioned program in 2017. They didn't win a game for their first 2 years. And then 2019, I found the story. They finally won their first game. The next year, they get to the playoffs, lose in the first round. Now they're in the state championship. That's just real heck of a progression.
Yeah,
for that
it
program.
is. And they can build off of this. Maybe with the younger girls, they can see what happens tomorrow and say, hey, maybe we're able to do this a little bit. Sure, Ivy's not going to be here next year since she's a senior, but maybe we can build off of this and make Dakota Valley Girls Soccer one of the top programs in the metro, if not all of South Dakota.
Absolutely. I mean, there's not a whole heck of a lot of teams in South Dakota anyway.
Not.
But yeah, this is an exciting place to be for them. They get to play at Howard Wood Field up in Sioux Falls, which I've been to the Canaries ballpark before. I've never been inside of Howard Wood Field. I'm excited to see the atmosphere. Just very much looking forward to another state title match.
And like you mentioned, you'll have coverage of that tomorrow in Sunday's edition. And Jesse Brothers will be up there taking photos and video as well. So we're looking forward to covering a state championship match on a Saturday early morning. And thank goodness it's early in the morning so we can get it in as well with our deadline. So thank you at South Dakota High School Athletic Association for making that match at 11 a.m. Makes our jobs easier to
It does. I don't have to hustle back a whole heck of a lot quickly.
Also tomorrow, there's a pretty big college football game in town as Morningside travels to Memorial Field to take on Briar Cliff. Morningside's dominated this rivalry before, but it is on Briar Cliff's turf tomorrow. I don't think that still makes a difference. I think the Mustangs still come away with a win. And like Shane Ledehy said to me this afternoon, the Chargers are going to have to play a perfect game tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's like pretty much any team, even a team that is highly ranked. I mean, if you play a Dordt, you play a Northwestern. If you go up against Morningside, you need to bring your A game. I mean, it's just a team. They pounce on mistakes on defense and on offense. They have so many playmakers on just both sides of the ball. I mean, the Mustangs, I think they're gonna come out with another victory, like you mentioned. But yeah, if Briar Cliff they're a young team. They're probably going to make a mistake or two, but you have to just minimize that. Just don't make the same mistake over and over. So yeah, I agree with Coach Ledehy. They just need to play a perfect game, or at least just a close to perfect game.
Close to perfect game, but I think it's going to take a perfect game to at least stay with the Mustangs, if not beat the Mustangs. And we'll see what happens. And then Morningside faces Dordt next week. So I don't think this is a trap game for the Mustangs, but the defenders are good. I think the Mustangs are too good not to overlook their next opponent. And I think they'll take care of business tomorrow at Memorial.
Yeah, I totally agree. And do you want to mention, we had one more, you mentioned cross country.
Yes.
Do we want to quickly go over cross country?
Let's talk about cross country a little bit. North winning the Mirac meet yesterday with another 16-point performance at Prairie Rose and Brunsville. Gabe Nash led the way this time for the boys, and they're firing on all cylinders right now. If they can get their top 4 into the mix on Wednesday in Ankeny against the likes of Dowling, who they've beaten 3 times already this season, I think it'll be a 4th coming up on Wednesday, and maybe even a 5th in a couple weeks in Fort Dodge. These Stars, as long as they stay healthy, they are the absolute favorites to repeat as Class 4A state champions.
Yeah, and this is the time of year where if you just have to be at your peak, and they all seem like they are at their peak right now. I mean, it's all the conditioning. Like you can't go too hard early in the season, or your body is going to break down. But it seems like they've paced themselves well, and they're coming up strong right when they need to.
Yep. On the girls' side, Kaya Downs won, and she broke the conference record by about 30 seconds
Impressive.
on Thursday. I think the big key for her is to obviously qualify for state on Wednesday, but just keep her stride, keep her pace where she wants it to be. And she's ranked 5th right now. She wants that state title. I think she's going to have to make a special move in a couple weeks to beat a Grace Bolin of PV, to beat those Dowling girls who are ranked ahead of her right now. She's got the capabilities to do it, but she just needs to make that one final push in a couple weeks, and maybe she finds that mojo Wednesday in Ankeny. I'm not saying she has to, but she has to in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. But the meet on Wednesday in Ankeny is going to be a big one for her to kind of gauge where she is with those Dowling girls.
Yeah, and then over the other side of the river, too, we had a big performance from a kid from South Sioux. You want to tell us about the South Sioux?
Masudi Hirso winning the district title again, and the state meet in Nebraska is next week. And I think he's primed to be a state champion this time around. And I think it's his 3rd district title. It's his 3rd state cross-country meet, I think. And I think his experience will help him next week. And I think he wins the state title next week. And that would be huge for the South Sioux cross-country program. They've brought in some really good young talent who look up to Masudi. And if he can pull that off, it can be leaps and bounds, kind of like for the girls' wrestling program in South Sioux, kind of like for the boys' wrestling program in South Sioux. Those secondary programs for South Sioux, not to say that they're secondary programs, but they are compared to football, basketball, and wrestling. But if they can take if the cross-country program can take a page from that, and they've had success in track too, this can be a huge stepping stone if Masudi can win a state title. I believe the meet's on Friday in Grand Island.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his finish yesterday, too, he ran a 16:06:30.
That's a really good time.
That's really good, and that was 32 seconds ahead of the runner-up, which was Dawson Frick of Blair. I mean, you win districts by 32 seconds. I mean, you were just dominating the field. And this, like we mentioned with North, I mean, he just seems like he's peaking at the right time right now.
And he finds a way, too. Mm-hmm. That's a good point, too. He finds a way to find his ceiling at the end of the season, and that's a really, really good point that you make. That is a really, really nice point. Anything else you want to cover here?
Well, locally, no. Tell us about your heartbreak last night. How are you
Giants, Dodgers beat the Giants last night. A really great season out of the Giants. 109 wins if you count the postseason. Really heartbreaking. Going to be rooting for the Braves this week in the NLCS.
Go Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, go Freddie Freeman. Go Ozzy Albies. Go pitching staff for the Braves. Max Fried has had a really good season. Charlie Morton has had a really good season for the Braves too. But, it was heartbreak for the Giants last night.
Especially that final call. That didn't look anywhere close to being a swing. It was not a swing.
It was not a swing. And maybe we ask Major League umpire Bruce Streckman, who does live in markets, how difficult is that to look at a check swing and maybe give Gabe Morales the benefit of the doubt there. But no, that was a really heartbreaking way to finish the series last night.
It's not what you want. It's not just how you want to finish, but... Yeah. Oh, I guess that just about wraps everything up for this week. I mean, anything else you want to talk about?
No, that's about it. I'm good.
All right. Well, for sports editor Zach James, I am assistant sports editor Shane Lantz. And actually, they can reach me or they can follow me at Shane M. Lantz on Twitter, and they can follow you at Zachary W. James on Twitter. And I will be at the Sioux City North versus West game tonight. And Zach will be man on the desk tonight putting this paper together.
I'll be in the office. for stat guys, coaches, call in your stuff, report in your stuff, scjsports@SiouxCityJournal.com, or if you want to call it in too, 712-293-4277. Again, that number is